All right, so today's episode is going to solve one of the biggest problems agents secretly face, and a lot of agents don't even know that they probably completely suck at this one skill. Not leads, not scripts, not even confidence, which was my biggest problem, but it's the lack of meaningful, influential conversations. And I brought one of the best people I know to break this down, someone who can turn a basic conversation, I've seen it happen so many times, into clients. And he can turn them into believers. He can turn them into lifelong relationships. He's one of the main mentors who drastically changed my life. A team leader who's been in the business for over 20 years. Ben Love, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for that, John. I really appreciate it, man. And
Of course, of course. What's going on in your life right now?
man, a lot of changes going on from companies to jumping back into production. And, now we're in this holiday season where I just got done with Thanksgiving and now heading into Christmas when a lot of people start to take their foot off the brake or off the gas.
And before we get tactical, I want people to understand why conversation mastery is so important. I feel like many agents don't even realize the amount of deals that they miss out on. I remember back when I first started, we used to do a lot of script practicing. And shout out to script practicing because a little later on in this conversation, I wanted to talk about the Wednesday trainings that you're going to be starting to do, but. So many agents, they just don't know how many deals that they're missing out on simply by saying the right words. So when did you realize that the agents who win more are agents who simply communicate better?
Yeah, I think I was one of those agents who walked into real estate like, oh man, I know how to talk to people. I know how to have great communication. And what I've discovered through different mentors, through different aspects, not only just in real estate, but in marriage and through all these different groups that I've gone through, is communication is really key if you're really wanting to draw into deep relationships. And
Mm.
and that's the key. How deep do you want to go in your relationship? Are you looking for surface? Well, then don't worry about communication. But if you want to really get to know people, you have to become curious and build your communication.
Okay, yeah, and I've seen you do it so many times where you go deeper into conversations, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But could you give one moment or like one situation where a conversation alone won you a deal or like got you a big client, and where another agent maybe if they said the wrong words would have definitely lost it?
Yeah, I remember it was probably like 2014. Somebody had come to me and said, "Hey Ben, can you help me with a lease?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And with anything, I always said, "Hey, well, let's meet up first so I can understand what you're actually looking for." Now, a lot of people would hear, "Hey, help me with the lease," and would be like, "Okay, great," and then try over the phone to really, "Hey, what are you looking for?" And they get the general information. "Oh, just a 3 bedroom, 2 bath in this area, and I don't want the rent to be here." And then they start working on that stuff, right? But I told the person, I said, well, let's meet up. Let's find out what's really important to you. And then that way I'll be able to help navigate this process. And through those asking a lot of questions, one of the final questions that I came up with once I discovered how much they were willing to pay, I said, well, how come you're looking to rent and not purchase a home? And that was the question. And she goes, I've just never thought of buying a home, right? And so I said, "Hey, well, can we have a deeper conversation on this? Do you mind if we jump into this?" And we did. And next thing you know, I turned a lease opportunity into a home sale, which then obviously turned into a couple more deals after that. And, that's where communication comes in, is helping to understand what people, why they're doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah, I think so many agents, they just take a client or a lead at face value and they don't go deeper in asking the right questions in order to maybe even get them into a better position. And in my opinion, really good influence is knowing what's best for the prospect and then channeling them to that best objective, right? And
Yeah.
so I want to sort of clear the air because I see this every single day. What's the biggest lie agents believe about talking to prospects?
That first and foremost, that prospects don't want to talk to them, right?
Ooh, that's good.
You know,
Yep.
they think, oh man, why would they want to talk to me? They don't understand that you went to school, you went through continuing education, that we're actually miles ahead of Joe Public, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to understand your true value that you can bring to people. And I think the more that you learn to ask a lot of great questions, right, the more you're going to start to understand how and where you need to navigate this road. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to communication is, which is completely crazy if you think about it, is you have to be a great listener to be a great communicator.
Yep. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, when it comes to listening, um, there's that really good book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And a
Yes.
lot of times people want to talk about themselves, but we don't give them the opportunity to talk about themselves. We pretty much, as agents for sure, we just present. Like we just present the facts instead
Yes.
of asking better questions. And so when it comes to becoming a better conversationalist, what is your opinion when it comes to being a better listener?
I think this happens in not only in the real estate industry, but in our personal relationships also, right?
Hmm.
We're so eager to get our point across that if you really listen to conversations, you'll notice that most of the time people are cutting people off. They're not finished with what they're saying, and all of a sudden you start speaking what you're doing. Now, in real estate, it's because we want the people to them to know, oh, look at how much knowledge I have. And so then we start what I call verbal vomiting on people, and we just start overloading them with information that they might not even need. So it takes away from actually listening to what they're saying, and you're more focused on what you're going to say to them. So that's where you miss a lot of the opportunities.
So true. I agree. And so let's sort of talk about that as well. Why do you think so many agents sabotage themselves the moment their mouth opens up? Do you think it's nerves? Is it ego? Or is it overthinking? I know back when we were working at first, when we were working together, 9 years ago, I felt like I was overthinking. But why do you think a lot of agents sabotage themselves?
I do think that it's a lot of overthinking. And I also believe that they don't believe that they're actually providing value, right?
That's true.
So if you're, well, what am I going to tell this person? And that's the biggest thing. What am I going to say to this person? How am I going to lead them? Right. And so they don't understand, well, you actually have the knowledge. You actually know the contracts. You actually know the product. And so by just being able to listen to what people need, then it's just like any business. You provide solutions for people's problems.
Yeah. And one perspective of that is if you don't know the solutions, then it's harder to find the solution or harder to finish the conversation with value if you don't know the solution. So that's why it's always important to surround yourself with people that are talking about solutions for their clients, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
on that point, though, John, because I think this is really, really, you bring up a really important part, right? Is a lot of times people will not know the answer. So there's really two paths that most agents will go down. They'll either say something that they don't even know is true just because they don't want to look like they're a new agent or don't have the information, or If you just simply tell the person, it's okay. Hey, look, I don't have the answer for that at this moment, but let me go and connect with my mentor, with somebody else, and let me find that information for you. And I will, the key point to this whole part is give them a deadline. I'll get back to you by tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Mm.
Right
You taught
now,
me that. I remember you teaching me that actually.
yeah. And now it's a reason to get back to them. It's a reason for you to actually go and find the information, which will grow you for later on. And then all of a sudden, it's a way to actually show that you are valuable without having to say, oh, well, I care about your needs and I'm the best agent ever, right? No, because if you just do what you say you're going to do, that's what people are going to really value.
I agree. I remember one time a client that I referred out to someone else, they called me and they said, "Hey, John, I just wanted to double check. Does the agent that you referred to work with me actually know what he's talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I hope this agent didn't do something wrong." So I call the agent and I'm like, "Hey man, is everything okay with this transaction?" And he goes, he basically said, "Man, they asked me a question and I didn't know the answer and I sort of just made up an answer." And unfortunately, that was way worse because now the client is calling me asking me if this guy even knows what he's talking about, right? And now it's creating distrust in a transaction in a career where trust is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you break down a high level influential conversation, to you, what are the most important pillars?
I think we call them the three C's, right? How do I create the conversation,
Okay.
right? And creating conversations is really just uh, looking and finding something that you have in common with, right? And then build from that, right? Then once you create the conversation, then how do you carry the conversation? And when you, that's just by asking questions about who they are, right? Hey, so tell me, why are you now looking to purchase a home, right? What's important to you, right? Like all these different questions that will help you find the goal of finding their motivation and their current situation, right? So these are all questions that will help lead to that. And then closing the conversation, right? I think that that's where a lot of people start to falter. They may be really good at creating it or maybe be great at carrying it, but when it gets to closing, all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't know what to say here. I've given them all this great information. I found this information about them and I have answers for them. But now I don't want to sound salesmansy and be like, hey, are you ready to go search for a home? Right. And
Yeah.
so closing is really just, again, taking their situation and motivation and then bringing that back up to them. Hey, I know that you need to be in California in 6 months, right? Like how, what's the timeline that you're looking to get into starting your home selling process, right? And so that, those are the three, the foundations of that, of a conversation, right? And then what you talked about earlier, just be you. Look, again, if you don't know the answer, that's okay. It's all right to not know the answer. We're not AI, we're not Chat GPT, we're actually humans. And again, it gives you an opportunity to provide value and show your value by saying, hey, I don't have the answers. That's human. That's, we don't know everything, and but I'll get this for you. And that's so important, right? Get out of your mindset that you have to know all the answers.
I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
One thing I really want to brag on you over the past 9 years of knowing you and working with you and seeing the client the clients and the agents that you've worked with and coached and the clients that you've helped buy and sell houses is that you have really good emotional intelligence. And so when it comes to emotional intelligence and maybe even emotional awareness, um, One thing that I've seen you do really well is one, not take offense when a client maybe gets mad or or at least from the outside perspective. But so my question is, what does emotional intelligence look like in the middle of a real estate conversation?
Yeah, I think in the very beginning of my real estate career, my faith wasn't as strong as it is today.
Mm,
And I think that that plays a big piece into it because I did used to wear my emotions on my sleeves. And so if I was upset at the other agent, I'm spewing it out and I'm spewing it to my clients. And now all of a sudden, of rather being able to separate those two things, now I'm getting them upset. Oh, well, it's the other agent. They did this and this and this. And, you know, it wasn't until I started to really draw into my faith, draw into Christ, to really start to be like, okay, I need to be more loving. I need to be more kind. Um, but I need to be genuine and I need to
mm,
be who I am. And I genuinely care for people, right? Like the money is not the draw for me. It is really seeing and watching people. I personally like working with first time homebuyers. Why? Because they're very appreciative of being able to walk through the process, right? And so, identifying who you are so that this way you could go work with the people that you want to work with, right? I think is key. But yeah, just generally caring for people, right?
mhm.
Don't worry about the money. Like God's going to provide everything that I need, right? It's genuinely caring for people because they will see if you genuinely care for them or not. And people can read it on you all day long.
Yeah. So you would say that when it comes to emotional intelligence, separating the result from the process is very important because when you do separate, like the commission is the result, right? But
Yeah.
going through the process and knowing that um, if we get through the process, that it will help the family, which in return will help the get the result, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'll say this. I learned from a really really good guy who's incredible in communications. Right, like there are different words that resonate with people. Like for
Hmm.
me, I'm an empathizer. I'm in a disc personality. I'm a high I, and so I'm feelings. I am a feelings guy, and so when I meet with the majority of people, hey, how are you feeling? Da, da, da. What do you feel about this? Right, and that simple question of feel sometimes is not going to work on like a personality who are
Right.
very driven, right? They're like, I don't need feelings. I need logical information. And so knowing who you are, knowing how to speak the language of the other person, I will call it the love language, call it whatever you want, right? But using certain words will help you carry and get through each conversation, right? And so I know that I am a EQ person. I got a decent IQ, but I lean more into my EQ. And so this is who I'm looking to work with. Don't mean that I won't work with engineers, but I've seen in my transactions sometimes that's a little bit tougher because
Me
they are
too.
more logical and they're like, I want this, 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 and this. And I'm like, let's just feel good and be happy, man. We're gonna be okay. And they're like, yeah, but I need to know this. And so, um, just again, back to knowing who you are.
I love it. That's so good. Okay, so then we talked about it a little bit at the very beginning, but what does it look like to lead a conversation, right? To you, how do you lead a conversation?
Well, it's simply by asking questions, right? Everybody's favorite subject is themselves, right? So the more questions that you ask, means the less talking that you need to do,
Ooh.
right? So when you ask questions, you're gaining valuable information that you'll be able to take that information and then say, this is how we're going to solve this to get you to what you're actually looking for. So a great conversation really for me will consist of me asking a lot of questions.
Okay. So let's get a little tactical if that's okay.
Sure.
We'll do a little bit of a rapid fire some questions from situations. So first one, what's the best way to start a conversation so someone immediately feels safe and more open to you?
Okay. Hey, great, John. Hey, I really appreciate you meeting with me, man. And I just want to let you know, I don't push my faith on nobody, but I do lead with my faith, and integrity and character is very important to me. So, look, I just want to let you know that if you don't mind, I'd love to pray for this situation, and then we can get started on what you're looking for. Now, that's me, right?
Gotcha.
Again, that's how I lead with every one of my clients. And here's the cool part about it is nobody's ever turned down the prayer,
Mm,
right?
I like it.
Yeah. So again, I could speak on that behalf. The other way is simply, hey John, how do you like to be communicated to?
That's a good question.
Yeah, right. Now you're going to tell me, hey, I like text. I like straightforwardness. I like don't soften it to me. Just give it to me, right? Now all of a sudden, most people aren't going to ask that question, and so when you do that, you're showing, hey, I value the way that you receive communication, and I want to be able to give you the way that you want to be communicated to.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Cool. So the next question is going to be, how do you ask tough questions like, I mean, timeline probably isn't a tough question, but budget, their motivation, maybe, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what's your credit score, stuff like that.
You're the professional. You just got to rip the band-aid off and jump right in,
Okay.
right? Because again, I will preface it like this. Hey John, do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you prefer me just to tell you what you want to hear?
That is a perfect, if you're listening right now, what he just said will help you so many times. Say it again.
Hey John, do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me just to tell you what you want to hear?
Most people want
The,
them to tell you, or want you to tell them what they actually need to hear, right?
yeah,
I love that.
they
That's so
want
true.
the truth. And so that's giving you permission to rip the band aid off and then just speak the truth.
Yeah. Another thing that I do is I lean on the lenders as well. So I'll say, hey, I'm going to ask you this question just because I know the lender is going to ask you as well. But what's a rough estimate of what your credit score looks like, right? Or I always say this before the sentence that might be a little bit uncomfortable, and it's like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, right? If
Yeah.
you don't mind me asking, about how much do you make per month, right? And it just sort of gives a little bit of a please, I'm politely asking you, a little bit more of a personal question.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that. I would even add this one. Hey, what I've discovered with the other people that I've helped get into a home is when I have the information up front, this will help us out in the long run. Right. And
ooh,
then
I
you can
like
ask
that one.
any question.
I like that one. So every agent has heard this one, and if they haven't, then they're probably just getting in the business. But hey, Ben, I just need to think about it.
John, you just need to think about it. Look, I can understand, right? I've given you a lot of information, but let me ask you specifically, what is it that you need to think about?
Well, interest rates, they might be going down here in the next month or so, and so I don't want to make a decision immediately.
That's perfectly fine, John. I can understand that 100%. But let me ask you, when the interest rates do drop, Do you think there's going to be more or less buyers on the market?
Mm. I don't know if y'all just noticed this, but listeners right now, he just asked a question that is going to create a thought in the prospect's mind that creates almost a little bit of uncertainty, right? So now that they have to move towards, or if it's a good decision, they move towards the objective. I love that. Okay, so ask that question again. You said
So,
if
like interest rates, right? Like if they do come down in a month, do you think there's going to be more or less buyers on the market?
probably more buyers,
And when there's more buyers on the market, what do you think happens to home prices?
they go up.
Yeah, right. And so I've helped a lot of people do this before where don't you think that it might be better to pay less for a house, a little bit higher interest rate, and then if the interest rates go down in a couple of months, then you have the opportunity to take advantage of that also. Would that sound something like you'd want to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, man. Well, let's continue on this search.
Awesome. Okay, so last question. If someone says, "Hey, we're just browsing," what's your favorite line to move them into like a real conversation?
Yeah, John, you know what? I love it, man. But when you're browsing, it tells me that you're being ready and prepared, and I love that. But usually, when people are browsing, they're a lot closer than what they think. So, what is your timeline that you're looking for?
Uh, you know, 6 months to a year.
6 months to a year? Okay, great. And in that 6 months to a year, is there anything that's holding you back, like let's say a lease agreement, or are you nothing holding you back at this moment?
Well, right now we're living with some friends and we're just trying to, check out the area and, I just don't want to make a decision super fast.
Yeah, no, that's great. And fantastic that you got friends that will let you live with them. How long have you been with them?
Just a few months now. We just moved here.
Yeah. And how's that going?
It's going all right. We'd like our own place though.
Okay, cool. Hey, look, John, I'm not here to pressure you or anything, but I do want to kind of make sure that I preserve your friendship, right? Like, if there is a house that we find at the right price and in the right neighborhood that is really meets everything that you and your wife are looking for, what would stop you from moving forward?
Honestly, not much. I mean, if it's the right house, the right price, we'd be willing to move forward.
Okay, cool. Well, look, John, again, no pressure or anything, but I'd love just to sit down with you and your wife and help save you some time in the long run. I just want to find out what's really, really important to you guys in the area because I mean, I've been here for over 15 years, so I know a lot of the area. And look, if I could save you 50 to 100 hours of home searches by showing you the homes that you actually want to see, man, that's what I'm looking to do. Would like would you be able to meet with us at 5 o'clock tonight, or maybe 10 a.m. on Saturday morning?
Yeah, let's do 10 a.m. Saturday morning.
Cool, man. All right, and then get their information and all that.
Nice. I love it. So a few things about that conversation is one, um, he he actually shows a little bit of his credibility by saying, "Hey, I've done this before," and then two, he asked for the appointment, which is always important. I think a lot of agents they skip that part. They're like, "Oh yeah, just reach out to me whenever," right? Or, "Hey, just send me a text or call me when you're ready," right? Instead of go
We're
ahead.
in communicate. Sorry, John. We're in communication, right? We're talking about communication. When you hear somebody say, "Hey, call me whenever," what do you think of that person, of their time and value?
It's not very valuable.
Yeah. When was the last time that you went to a doctor that said, "Yeah, hey, just come in to my office anytime"?
It's so true.
It does, right? Like this is what we talk about when words matter, right? When you tell them, "Hey, you could call me anytime. I'm available anywhere." what you're really telling them is, I don't have no business. So I'm all here for you. And look, on one side of it, it sounds really great. I'm here for you, but you got no business. I don't know if I want to put my biggest investment in my life in the hands of somebody who other people aren't trusting to work with.
Mm-hmm. So true. All right, final takeaway for the agents listening right now thinking, dang, I have so much room to grow. What's one shift that they should make this week to move towards the needle or to move the needle?
You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Find a mentor, find somebody who is an accountability partner, and practice conversations every single day. It doesn't take a lot of time, 10 to 15 minutes of you guys just going through different scenarios that happen in real life.
Mm.
That would, I mean, that's it. Again, there's so much when you bring in another person to help you get to your point.
100%. And if someone wants to connect with you or learn from you or partner with you, how can they get in contact with you?
You can find me on Instagram at benlove_ATX_realtor, or you can reach me on phone text 512-487-9325.
All right, brother. I appreciate you, your wisdom in changing lives, not just business. And to everyone watching or listening, I genuinely think that if you master conversations, you're going to create more opportunities, which will create more deals closed, and your business will get easier. Your confidence will get easier. Guys, if you should have saw me when I first got into real estate, I mean, I was mumbling words. Ben, do you remember that?
Trust me, I remember you and our boy Levi. Here's what I will say. Look, the mindset, don't go in with, oh, I got to talk to people, I got to talk to people, I got to talk to people. Just go make friends. That's what you got to do. Just go make friends. That's it.
I love it. Well, Ben, thank you so much for being on this episode. We appreciate you. And for all the listeners, go subscribe, go like, go comment. Honestly, I don't even know what I'm posting this video on, but it's going to be a good one. So we appreciate you guys and look forward to seeing you on the next video.